welcome to a new Harry's Garage, and today's car is the Alfa Romeo 2000 GTV you see behind me. This one dates from, it was first registered in March 1974, and I bought it last year because I just hadn't seen one as good as this. Now this model is a bit of a hero car, from childhood hero really. When I was getting into cars and learning to drive in the 70s, this was the car that we all wanted in the 70s. It looked cool, it was Italian, it's got a twin cam engine, all sorts of things. And it was like this mini exotic. And I've actually got a magazine dating from 1973, a motor from 1973, just to give you an idea that this car was actually quite expensive in its day, brand new. So in 1973, this 2000 GTV lists at £2,849. If you wanted the Spider version, I've got one over there, £2,949. Now, if you also wanted, say, a Ford Capri 2000 GT, it's a sort of similar sort of car, well, that would cost you, let's have a little look, $1,408. So you could actually get two Ford Capris for one of these Alfa GTVs. So it was quite pricey in its day, and that's why it felt so exotic. And it had a sort of motor racing pedigree and that sort of thing. Anyway, I want to give you a sort of tour around this car because it's a lovely example. So let's have a look at the details now. Now this model of Alfa is sort of known as a 105 series, so that's the basis of it, and it first was introduced as a Giulia Sprint GT, a 1600cc car in 1963. Cesario design, well actually it's a Bertoni design, but Giorgio Cesario is the designer who actually penned it. It's one of his first cars he did. He did Maserati Ghibli and the Ghibli Spider, and he's famous, most famous I suppose, for the Golf GTI original Mark I and a Sirocco. Fiat Panda, original Fiat Panda is a particular favourite for his, Uno, all sorts of cars. He says he didn't really like this model. Well, I can't see why, because I think it's an utter delight. Really dainty, really nice looking, and it was the first car really that introduced this sort of slab front with the lights and the open grille. Previous to that, mainly the lights are either pop up or in the wings, but this was a new look, a modern look in 1963. I think silver really suits it as well. I mean, they're generally red, or there was some horrible green, maroons, all sorts of those sort of colours. But that sort of huge glass area, it reminds me of the Ferrari Lusso from the rear, really. Just so neat and just a delight of the chrome and the detailing on it. I ought to just give this the serpent, the famous Milanese serpent, showing either a snake eating someone. I just think it's a great badge, and there it is on the side of the car. It forms part of the Alfa badge, but just great on the side of this car. This sits on the original steel wheels. There was aluminium, sort of turbo aluminium wheels that are a bit like the Alfa Romeo Montreal design, but this is the standard wheel. Difference to 1750, the previous model was that had hubcaps. This had this sort of open design with the wheel nuts on show. Very distinctive look. The early cars, the 105 series, had twin headlights rather than this sort of quad headlight look, and also they all had that clap hand wiper look. But another distinctive look I always think on these Alfas is the way the sump hangs down, this thinned aluminium sump. It was very typical of the period. Maserati used to do the same. They didn't fit an oil cooler, they just fitted a giant sump with fins on it just so you could crack it open on a pothole. I've got to show you the engine on this car, and being an Alfa, they like left-hand drive cars, of course, so all the controls, open the bonnet and the boot, are this side of the car. One there, and that one's open as well. Now it's a lovely engine. In this, as I say, twin cam, always a twin cam in the 105 series. They went down to a 1300, there's a GT Junior as it's termed. They had a GT Junior, which was a sort of tax thing, 89 horsepower or something. This lump, 131 horsepower, up 15 horsepower on the 1750 that came before it. They did that, they got the extra cc by a bigger bore, so it's the same crank, so it lights the revs, although the red line starts at 5.7, it's happy up to 6,000 RPM. But it's just a delightful engine. Torque is 134 pound-foot of torque as well. And what used to get me as a kid is this car, this engine always had twin carbs. It always had a set of twin 40 carbs, sometimes Weber's, Delorto's or Solex carbs. It just appeared so glamorous, this engine, with its aluminium, polished aluminium cam covered with the twin cams and these double carburetors. When you looked under the bonnet of a Capri, it was so dull, it was untrue. All you saw was sort of a pan air cleaner and that sort of thing. Not so with the Alfa, dressed and very Italian. Just a quick look at the back. And here you just get a little boot, plastic line. This one's actually got a aftermarket sort of carpet on it as well, and a spare tyre and things. I don't know, there's no need to see it, I don't think. Yeah, spare tyre, doesn't matter. But yeah, a sort of usable car, a car you can sell as a sort of family car, as long as the kids aren't too big and they sit in the back. Anyway, what this car is all about is the driving, so let's take it outside now. And here we are. Old style seat belts, this sort of vintage. No inertia belts, unfortunately. Oh, that's in. And then the dash. What's nice about the dash is the wood wheel went right through the range. So even though this is a 1974 car, here it is. Little hoops and marks on the outside, not in the middle, it's on the side. Then the dial's really easy. Tacho, speedometer, 140 mile an hour speedo. And then fuel and water temperature, and then a sort of series of warning lights. It sounds good already. And a lovely 5-speed gearbox that is a funny plane. It's sort of long throw, but it's right by the wheel and it works really well. A sort of flash of wood on the dash as well. I mean, it has to be said, there's quite a lot of plastic in here. If you think this is quite an expensive car, there's a fair amount of plastic, but it's all made up for. You can probably hear it already, that rasp just there, just 2,000 RPM and off it goes. Really nice. Anyway, I'm going to go down to my usual bits of roads, so you'll join me in a little bit. See you later. I want to give a little bit of background to this actual example, because it's a bit special, this car. If I look back at the history, it sort of appeared, the first time it came up for sale was way back in 1998, and it was a one-owner car with just 14,700 miles on it. Really low. And it was advertised in the Alfa magazine and only go to an enthusiast. And a guy bought it. It was, I'm trying to think how much it was, about £7,000–8,000 at the time. And he then displayed it at the National Alfa Romeo meeting in 2001 and picked up best GTV Coupe, 105 Coupe, and a sort of best overall prize. Not quite sure from the certificates I've got exactly what it was for, but it's a bit special, this car. He then sold it, I'm not quite sure, in the noughties I think, and a collector in Jersey bought the car and I bought it off him, and it's now on 17,800 miles. Amazing. I mean, it is utterly original and utterly perfect in every way, and I had to pay a fair bit for it. But Alfas of this period, I'm afraid they just dissolve. I mean, even when I was looking at these models in the late 70s, early 80s, trying to buy one, they were £500–600, because even the first MOT, the 3 years MOT first test, you're already worried about rust. And looking underneath, you can sort of understand why. It's got every little way of catching a bit of mud and rust, and the steel wasn't very good quality, so they just don't survive. And this is the first one I've seen like this, utterly original, as I say, 17,000 miles, and just a delight. So that's why I bought it. So I really wanted to get to know a proper 2000 GTV, relive the car that I never actually bought when they were new. Well, I wasn't going to buy a new one, but a second-hand one. The other thing, a sort of surprise to it, is how small it is. I can quite happily touch that door over there. It's really quite narrow, quite compact. But the plus side is it's really, really light. It's 1,044 kilos as we got it here, with fuel, everything. Well, half a tank of fuel. Super light, really. And it might only have is 131 horsepower, this engine, but it's not got a lot of weight to move around. Live axle at the rear, but with trailing arms. A limited slip diff was standard on the 2000 GTV, like this one. And yeah, the performance figures of the time were around 9 seconds to 16 seconds quarter mile, 25 for the to 100 miles an hour. Top speed of 120, just runs out of revs. So this was a 100 mile an hour cruising car, is what the journalists like to think of it as. But for just diving through the lanes like this, it's just great, this little thing. And it's so pretty, I think. Part of me thinks it's a bit like my little Elan, but the Elan's got more fire in its belly than this, but it's not nearly as civilised. But this is just a very classy little car. It's got some great touches of originality on here. I've got all the service books. There's an AA members handbook from 1974. In the glove box is hiding the original 8-track playouts. I'm sort of quite tempted to put back, and some 8-track tapes in there as well. Peter and Lee and things. It's got quite a nice period one in there already. But yes, all that stuff, all part of the history. Anyway, we'll take it down here, just to give you a bit more of an idea how this actually drives. One nice thing is there's disc brakes all round. And off we go. So, and one of the first things you might notice, there's a lot of wind noise, and they were notorious for it, these little Alfas. Not quite sure where it comes from. In the summer it doesn't really matter because you have the quarter lights open, there's no air conditioning on this car. But yeah, it's quite a noisy cabin at sort of motorway speeds, or I'm doing about, what am I doing, just on 60 miles an hour. But yeah, it's no power steering obviously, tyres little 165 tyres, normal section, 14-inch rims. Funny, when they first came out they had 155 on 15-inch rims, and then they dropped to 14-inch rims later on. And the beautiful visibility out, again a reminder of cars of this period. They had the really slim pillars just supporting the windscreen. There's this huge glass area to look out of. Ooh, going a little quick. I should remember this is a classic car and it's very old. But it drives. That's the beauty of driving by in a car that's 17,000 miles old and being beautifully maintained. This is what it was like when it was new. Through the compressors, round we go. It's a nice gear change. Just got to give it a few more revs around here. I haven't quite got the roll holder of the modern cars, but I don't care. And round we go. Yeah, you can see why they were so popular. Imagine this against an MGB or something like that. Sort of must have felt really heavy and lethargic. An engine that didn't really like revs. The 1300s of the version of this, 1300cc cars, they really rev. They had a red line at 7,000 RPM, and they're quite a delight. You really have to row them along with the gearbox. With this, you've got the torque, and it just sort of feels, quite happily keep up with modern day traffic. One thing that's a bit odd about the right-hand drive 2000 GTVs is they still have the floor-mounted pedals. All other Alfa 105 GTVs all swapped to top-hinged pedals, something like 71, 72, but not the right-hand drive cars that continue with this slightly weird 911-esque pedal arrangement where they hinge out the floor, so they're not quite as clean. You soon get used to it. It's just a peculiarity of the right-hand drive cars. But, oh, it's just great fun. And not sure how long I would have survived if I was 17 and had one of these. Very glad I've got one now though. It does live up to that sort of mini exotic. It's got all those details that you love of Alfa, and it's got the Italian name, the Spirit, and then it's got the Giario design. I think it's a delightful design, and the GTAs do all the racing on it. Here we go, let's go around here, let's see what it's got a bit of understeer. Chuck it in. I wonder if they ever move that van. Around we go. Oh, it's just, well, it's just stepping out there. I'm only doing that 35-40 round there. No row holding compared to modern cars, but it really doesn't matter. So, and this particular example was unusual in having this nylon upholstery as well. No, I think this was a pretty special car in the 70s. You've got to remember it came out in 63, so it was 10 years old at the time this car was brand new. But it still had that Alfa spirit, still had that glamour, and you can see why they sold so many. They did 37,000, I think, of the 2000 GTVs. It was about 44,000 of the 1750s version. GTV, the V is Veloce, that's what it means, a GT Veloce. As soon as they added horsepower, it got the V. But I've driven the 1750s and they say they're smoother and they rev better. Well, I'm sorry, but I can't agree. This feels just the same as the 1750, just that more grunt at the bottom end. So there you go. I hope that's given you a little insight into the Alfa 2000 GTV. This example of 1974. I'm sort of planning some event or something to do with it this year. Hope you enjoyed the video. Keep watching, keep subscribing. More videos coming along very soon.